Okay guys, may I have your attention please? We are going to take a start with IELTS speaking part 1 and then gradually we'll go on. As far as IELTS speaking part 1 is concerned, it's just an introductory talk with the examiner, and examiner will ask you 5 to 10 questions. Sometimes they ask you 15 to 20 questions as well. Actually, the number of questions, they depend on your answers. For example, if you're giving very short answers and you're not speaking too much, then they will ask you more questions. If you are giving crammed answers are memorized ones, so then they will ask you more questions to make sure that you are not they want to just take you out of that crammed answer thing, and they want to check your natural English. So in that case, they can ask you more and more questions. Otherwise, normally 5 to 6 questions they ask you, and they can be 1 to 2 topics. One of my students recently appeared in IELTS. He told me that every question was related to a different topic. So this is also possible. It's not always that they will ask you, for example, the topic is smile, and they ask you all 5 questions about smile. I think they've changed the pattern a little, that they will ask you 1 question about smile, 1 question about hometown, 1 question about shopping mall, 1 question about leisure activity. So they may ask you mixed questions as well, and there's no problem. Listen, in part 1, they always ask you 1 sentence question. 1 sentence question means it's going to be a simple question with WH questions. Do you know WH questions? What, when, where, why, how, who, and all that. They are called WH questions. So all the questions that they ask you, they are WH questions. Mainly, they ask you questions in 5 tenses. The most common, most important one is present simple. How often do you? Or do you? So all the questions that they ask you with do you, how often do you, these questions are present. Second, if they ask you some questions with did you, when did you, how did you, where did you means future tense. Thank you. Past tense. All right. That was hello testing mic check. Okay. So did you means past tense. If they ask you any question with did you can answer accordingly. When did you? Why did you? How did you? And all that. And finally, it's future. Future, they will use will you. When will you go to a foreign country? What will you do tomorrow? How will you manage these things and all that? So these are 3 major tenses, and the questions are asked in 3 major tenses plus 2 more tenses. Those 2 tenses are present perfect and present perfect continuous. For example, whenever they use the word recently, what have been some of the changes in your hometown recently? So with recently, have been without ing form, that means present perfect tense. So for example, how has your hometown changed recently? Right? How has the transport system in your hometown changed recently? So with recently, how has been, if it is singular, how have been, if it is plural, that is present perfect tense. So you will answer in present perfect tense. These 5 tenses must be handy. When you go for your IELTS speaking test, these 5 tenses must be very, very handy. And same is the case for IELTS writing. So if you don't know these 5 tenses, you should know active voice and passive voice, both. Because you want to give a variety to the examiner. So that is why they should be active and passive voice, okay? Now, the 5th tense is present perfect continuous tense. Now, what is present perfect continuous? An action that started in the past, continued over time, and at present, either the action is finished or it is still going on. For example, if I say, I have been teaching English for 10 years. I have been teaching English for 10 years. That means 10 years ago, I started my teaching career, and until now, at this point, I have been teaching English for 10 years, right? If I say I have been working there without since for, when I say I have been working there means I started working there, it continued for some time and finished in recent present or recent past actually. I have been working there. In local language, you can say मैं वहाँ काम करता रहा हूँ. Right? I have been working there. So you should know these 5 tenses, and they will ask you the questions. Now, let's come to the point how to answer the question. Very, very important. The first sentence of your answer should answer the question directly. Never give yes no answers to the examiner. Never give answers with words. For example, they say, do you go to the shopping malls? Yes. And then there is a pause. So you should not answer like that. Try to answer in 4-5 sentences. Otherwise, you can just maintain good eye contact with the examiner. Examiner will tell you how long your answer should be. When you give the first answer, examiner will just let you know non-verbally how long your answer should be, and then you need to coordinate with the examiner and you can just go on, right? So, when they ask you the question, for example, the question is, how often do you go for shopping? How often do you go for shopping? Now you can say, I usually go for shopping once a month. First, answer the question directly. What's the question? How often do you go for shopping? I usually go for shopping once a month. Because. Why because? Because you have to make compound sentences. A compound sentence is where you join two ideas together. Right? So if you don't know how to make compound sentences, learn them. If you speak simple sentences, you will get band 5, 5.5, maximum 6. And if you make compound sentences with signpost language is like first of all, secondly, finally, furthermore, moreover. So if you use signpost language and compound sentences, that can improve your band score 7.5 to 8. Right? So you should focus mainly connectivity of ideas. All right, so how to answer? The first sentence will answer the question directly. How often do you go for shopping? I usually go for shopping once a month because in the beginning of the month when I get my salary, so I have some budget for shopping and I go to my favorite shopping mall. Sometimes I buy clothes, otherwise I buy some cosmetics, and this is how I go for shopping once a month. That's it. At the end, there should be one sentence conclusion. At the end of your answer, one sentence conclusion. And that conclusion will be to answer your question. I go for shopping when I get my salary. And don't repeat ideas. Don't repeat. You know, some students, what do? In every answer, they repeat the same ideas. The question is, what's your favorite shopping mall? My favorite shopping mall is Hyperstar. I go there regularly. I like it very much, blah, blah, blah. How often do you go to that shopping mall? I go to that shopping mall very regularly. I like the shopping mall. It's a big shopping mall. It's this, it's that, it's that. They think the topic is just never pick a word from the question, and in every answer you give the same pieces of information. That is what we call repetition. Repetition is the band killer in IELTS. If you repeat the same ideas, same wording, same sentences in IELTS speaking as well as IELTS writing, you will get low band score for that. So please don't go for that. And 3 steps. Step 1, answer the question directly. Step 2, elaborate your answer. You can make 2-3 sentences. And then step 3, conclude your answer in 1 sentence. How to conclude? To answer your question, to reply to your question as you have asked me, right? Or any other word like that you can use to answer the question. Is this all good? And by the way, part 1 will give you confidence to go on with part 2 and part 3. If you mess with part 1, your all speaking test is going to be a disaster. Same thing is with IELTS listening. When you start part 1, listening part 1, when you write the first answer, it gives you confidence, and then you go on to second, third, fourth, and then you are really good. You feel good about that. And if you just like one of my students, she opened IELTS listening question booklet, multiple choice in part 1, and she started thinking, multiple choice in part 1, this has never happened. This is new IELTS pattern. Old pattern is different. I prepared from old pattern. This is new. She thought herself, and then the whole test went very badly. Okay, so please never come up with anything negative, anything bad during your exam. Feel good, be happy, and take your test like that, okay?